this idea that the entire Christian faith, or that God himself is a weapon of evil, is completely ridiculous. And that's what she's trying to pose here. She's trying to peddle an anti-Christian sentiment and use the persecution or anti-Muslim narrative as a double and triple cross. And it's just offensive. You know, first of all, again, you don't believe in God, truly. I mean, you know, let's just cut through the bullshit. She doesn't believe in God. She doesn't believe in the Muslim God that she tries to present herself to believe in. All of her actions are contradictory, unless she's trying to propose that she herself is revolutionizing the Quran and the faithful teachings of the Muslim faith, which many of these leftists are doing. And they're that middle portion of people who say they're Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, but in fact are trying to change all of the fundamental pillars of faith itself. There's nothing more arrogant and anti-God than that.
It isn't about applying the free speech. It's about applying the standard and objectivity of the God of free speech. Remember, you don't have free speech because the Constitution gives it to you. You have free speech because God has given you that, and the Constitution is acknowledging the realities of that God. And so just trying to love the gift of God apart from God gets you more slavery, because you forget the God who gives you the gift. And it's baffled me watching Twitter and people. You said it earlier in your monologue, Jason, 0.4% transgenderism in America, and the tail is wagging the dog right now. And the only reason that the tail is wagging the dog right now is because the dog doesn't know the difference between his head or his tail. And so if you put free speech in that without knowing the difference between the head or the tail, you're still going to get a messed up system that doesn't flow well.
Colin Kaepernick is entitled. It's his sense of entitlement that has kept him out of the NFL the last 5 years. In 2017, had he been willing to sit down and talk to anybody and say, hey, I'm willing to be a backup, and I'm willing to take a backup salary, and I just want to compete, he would have been in the NFL in 2017. But he was entitled then. And so in his sense of entitlement, he wanted to be a starter and he wanted a major contract. That's what kept Colin Kaepernick out of the league in 2017. It wasn't racist NFL owners. It wasn't owners, oh my God, he kneels and we just can't handle it. The guy is entitled and delusional. That's why he's not in the NFL. And he's still entitled and delusional.
Remember, Goodell is a coward, and he is incompetent, and he's just lucky. Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, Ingrid Newey with PepsiCo, and Dan Snyder all called me, several other folks, about Goodell's conduct and the way he was handling this. Jones and Dan Snyder with the Redskins wanted Goodell fired. This is like the November the 31st or something. It was the day before, like the 1st of November, end of October. They called me and said, you need to take this guy out. You're the number one sponsor of the league as far as notoriety and acceptance and association. Everybody loves you. They love Peyton. We hate Goodell. Snyder says he sits on 57th Street all day long and drinks Chardonnay. He's a drunk. And yet we pay him $50 million a year. Snyder and Jones hate Goodell. I said, no, this is not my job to fire your commissioner. He works for you.
I don't know when the victimhood idea really started to take hold, but in the Bible, you are not a victim. The biggest victim in the history of the world is Jesus Christ, and he didn't stand up and say, don't treat me this way. He said, I will take this because you need me to. And so I think Kaepernick has been casted as the victim and continues to play. And again, I think it always goes back to Christianity, because I agree the culture, if it were to reflect the Judeo-Christian values, could still succeed. God has put laws in place for people to succeed, and plenty of non-Christians succeed all the time. But it does always go back to Christianity at its root, because the Bible's all about individualism. It doesn't talk about victimhood at all. You know, it's like, I think the entitlement idea of people walking around saying you owe me these things comes from the victimhood, wherever that came, and we've shifted away from the Christian values. So how can a culture that has moved away from God, how can it still maintain God's values? And that's where we are.
People have a tendency to misuse and abuse things. Money is a tool. But if we love money, then as Bobby points out, we turn money into an idol. We begin to worship it. It gives us access to all the things we desire, et cetera. So money by itself is not the problem, but it can become a god if you fall in love with it and make it your god. And even what we put into money, the passage that you bring up where Jesus talks about how difficult it would be for a rich person to into the kingdom. That's the point that he's making. It's not impossible, but it's extremely difficult because you're having to live every day turning yourself away from what your money can access. So unless you have a heart that is sold out for God, the way God feels about himself, he is the God. He will not be number 2 on your list. If he's not number 1, take me off the list.
I have, for the first time in my life, I have on skinny jeans today. And
is that what I smell?
Yeah. And I can honestly say I think my circulation has been cut off. And, and I won't be doing this again. These are some jeans I had tucked away, like I bought them 2 or 3 months ago when I first started losing weight, and I was like, and when I got them, I couldn't wear them. They were too tight, and I was like, oh, okay, I got to lose some more weight. And so today I put them on. I was like, oh man, I can wear them. But this is a mistake. I'm losing feeling in my thighs.
You losing feeling? Hey man, listen. When you're not used to wearing skinny jeans, you lose feeling in more places than your thighs. Okay, let me just say.
All right, let's get to our approval rating on Joe. Oh, you know what, Jim? I did want to ask, because did you see the Mike Tyson video that me and Steve Kim were talking about?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
I argued that Tyson was the bad guy in that situation. You can't, in his position, you can't let someone annoy you.
First of all, you do realize that the Mike Tyson that we used to watch in the boxing ring and the Mike Tyson that we see in public now is 2 different people? Remember when we used to see Mike in the ring, there was rumors that Mike did drugs, okay? Nowadays, it ain't no secret that Mike do drugs, okay? So Mike ain't in his right mind. So you go fooling with Mike Tyson like, Mike done been to prison. Hey, look, you know what? I can go back to prison and live rent-free. I have nothing about me at all. Man, he deserved to get them knots whooped upside his head. I hope they was worth every click and like he got.
What DeSantis is doing now is laying down victory after victory. So in that sense, I actually think he is more like Mike Tyson in early Tyson years. I'm not talking about Buster Douglas. It's 1 week, a couple months ago, it's, hey, all the police officers in New York and all these big cities, if your mayor and your governor wants to defund you, come down to Florida. We got you. He was like Suge Knight, right? He's like, come down to Florida. We got you. That's public order. And this will tie into my column. That's public order. Then he took on the teachers unions, the LGBTQIA plus lobby, and eventually Disney to push back on the indoctrination that was going on in schools, right? That's social and moral order. Then in 1 week, he gave you $70 million for a fatherhood initiative, an abortion ban after 15 weeks, more funding for foster parents. That's 3 policy wins in 1 week.
But I did want your thoughts on, me and my attempt to re-enter the dating scene. I was wondering if you had any thoughts. I mean, after the segment you had yesterday with Shamika giving her dating advice, I figured you have any advice for me besides stocking up on First Leaf wine?
I would just say that as you step out into the dating game, I would just stay in your weight class, brother. Stay in your weight class. You know what I'm saying? Use a football term. Don't outkick your coverage, brother. Don't outkick your coverage.
You know, I got a policy, Jim, that when we're sitting in the car, if my elbow touches your elbow, there's too many fat people in the car. I just don't do that. I'm just sorry. There's only room enough for one fat person in a relationship.
Look, man, I got 3 rules. You can't weigh more than me, you can't have more kids than me, or you can't be older than me. You can't hit any of those 2. Okay? More kids? I got 6 kids. I weigh 250. You only can hit 1.